Picture this. A man stands trapped inside a gigantic stone mortar. The kind used to grind grain, only this one is big enough for a human. Around him, executioners heft heavy iron pestles. The man's limbs are bruised and broken, blood pooling at his feet. He is moments from being literally pounded to death. And yet, through the pain, he smiles. Who could possibly smile at a moment like this? This is the true story of Anaxarchus, an ancient Greek philosopher whose sharp tongue earned him the wrath of a tyrant. It's a dark tale of pride, revenge, and unbelievable courage. Today, we'll uncover how a reckless joke at a royal banquet sealed Anaxarchus's fate, and how he faced a gruesome execution with defiance that would echo through history. This story isn't just morbid curiosity. It's a shocking reminder of how powerful words can be, and a lesson on standing by one's principles even in the face of death. Stay tuned, because you'll want to hear every graphic detail of this dramatic saga. Our story begins in 331 BC, in the aftermath of Alexander the Great's conquest of the city of Tyre. A lavish victory banquet is underway. Imagine a grand hall flickering with oil lamps, Alexander the Great at the head of the table, surrounded by his generals, allies, and favored companions. Among them is Anaxarchus of Abdera, a noted philosopher in Alexander's entourage. Anaxarchus is a clever man, known for his wit and easy charm. In fact, his cheerful disposition had earned him the nickname Eudaimonykos, meaning the fortunate or happy one. He had a talent for making even the volatile Alexander laugh, often using flattery or bold humor to ease tense moments. But on this night, Anaxarchus's wit would go too far. As cups of wine flow and platters of roasted meat are passed around, Alexander turns to Anaxarchus with a grin and asks him how he likes the feast. It's a casual, jovial question, the kind a king might ask to show camaraderie with his men. The room falls quiet, expecting a clever reply. Anaxarchus, ever the charismatic jester philosopher, does not disappoint. He raises his voice and declares, "This feast is magnificent." In fact, only one thing is missing: the severed head of a defeated enemy served on a platter. A startled hush spreads, followed by a few nervous chuckles. It sounds like a grisly joke, but those present understand the context. Alexander has many enemies, and some of the local kings at the table had only recently bent the knee to him. Anaxarchus's remark is bitingly sarcastic and dangerously pointed. He says, "A defeated enemy," but his eyes flick toward one man in particular, Nicocreon, the tyrant of Salamis in Cyprus. Nicocreon is one of Alexander's new vassals, attending the banquet as a gesture of loyalty. By suggesting the missing ingredient is the head of a satrap, a provincial ruler, Anaxarchus is all but implying that Nicocreon's head should be the evening's final course. Nicocreon's face freezes. For a split second, tension crackles in the air. Alexander lets out a booming laugh. Perhaps he finds the morbid joke amusing, or perhaps he chooses to play it off to avoid conflict among his guests. The other guests force laughter as well. And Nicocreon, he manages a thin, sour smile, trying not to lose face. But behind his eyes, humiliation and fury boil. He's just been publicly mocked and threatened, under the guise of humor, and he can't do a thing about it. Not here, not now. Alexander the Great is protecting Anaxarchus by his very presence, and Nicocreon, as a subordinate, must swallow the insult for the moment. Yet Nicocreon silently vows revenge. That night, as the laughter dies down and the banquet resumes its merriment, a seed of hatred is planted in Nicocreon's heart. He will not forget what Anaxarchus said. And Anaxarchus, perhaps he thought his joke was a grand success, or perhaps he didn't realize the mortal danger he had just invited. One thing is certain: He had no idea that his flippant words would one day cost him his life. Time passes. Alexander the Great continues his campaigns, and Anaxarchus remains by his side for a while, enjoying the favor of the most powerful man on earth. But fortunes change. By 323 BC, Alexander is dead suddenly, and his empire fractures into chaos. The mighty king's protection is gone, and old scores are waiting to be settled. Far away on Cyprus, Nicocreon has never let go of his grudge. This tyrant of Salamis is patient, and now the fear that once kept him in check has lifted. In the power vacuum after Alexander's death, Nicocreon grows bolder. He solidifies his rule on Cyprus, and no one stands between him and his hate for Anaxarchus. He must have wondered, will fate ever deliver my enemy into my hands? Meanwhile, Anaxarchus decides it's time to head home after years of adventure in Asia. Perhaps he's sailing back to Greece or traveling to another safe haven now that Alexander is gone. He boards a ship and sets out across the Mediterranean. We can imagine him on the deck of a wooden vessel, gazing at the horizon. Maybe he's relieved to leave the turbulence of court politics behind. He might even believe that the danger with Nicocreon has passed. After all, it's been nearly a decade since that banquet in Tyre. Surely Nicocreon wouldn't still hold a grudge, or would he? Out on the open sea, fate intervenes. A storm begins to brew. Black clouds gather, waves churn, and fierce winds whip the sails. The ship is caught in a violent tempest. The crew fights desperately to steer clear of danger, but it's no use. With a horrific crash, the vessel is thrown against rocky shores. Timber splinters, sailors are tossed into the raging sea. Anaxarchus and the survivors scramble onto land, drenched and shaken. As thunder rumbles and rain pours, they realize where they have washed ashore. In a sick twist of destiny, they are on the island of Cyprus, Nicocreon's domain. Before the castaways can regroup, armed soldiers surround them. Anaxarchus is seized. Perhaps he still has hope. Hope that the soldiers won't recognize him, or that the local ruler will show mercy to a shipwrecked traveler, but that hope dies quickly. Word reaches Nicocreon almost immediately. The man who insulted you is here. The tyrant's moment has come at last. Nicocreon's vengeance, long delayed, is about to be unleashed. Anaxarchus is dragged in chains to Nicocreon's stronghold. One can only imagine his dread as he realizes whose presence he's about to be brought before. The years melt away, and he recalls the drunken banquet, his own voice joking about a satrap's head on a platter, Nicocreon's head. Now that very man stands before him, smiling coldly. Did Nicocreon taunt him? Did he remind Anaxarchus of that night in Tyre? Perhaps Nicocreon simply savors the fear in his prisoner's eyes. The philosopher, once a cherished guest at a king's table, is now at the mercy of a man he deeply offended. Nicocreon wastes no time in making his intentions clear. He intends not just to execute Anaxarchus, but to make him suffer unimaginably. The tyrant orders his men to prepare a very special form of torture, one so ghastly that it will serve as the ultimate lesson. No one mocks Nicocreon and lives. Under a gray, stormy sky, the sentence is carried out. Anaxarchus is taken to an open yard or perhaps a public square so all can witness what happens to those who cross the tyrant. In the center stands a giant stone mortar, essentially a huge bowl carved from rock, normally used for pounding grain or herbs. This time, the ingredient is to be a living man. The sight of it would make anyone's blood run cold. Nicocreon's soldiers force Anaxarchus into the mortar. He's roughly shoved down into the stone basin. Iron shackles clink as they may bind him in place, or perhaps several men hold him steady. Above him loom the executioners, brawny men gripping long iron pestles, essentially oversized heavy rods, their ends stained and dented from prior use. Anaxarchus's heart must be pounding as he looks up at these human hammers. Is he praying? Is he weeping? Those close by later say the philosopher showed no fear, meeting his fate with astonishing fortitude. But it's hard to imagine anyone completely free of fear in such a moment. Perhaps he steels himself by recalling his philosophy, ideas about the triviality of physical pain or the separation of soul and body. Perhaps he decides he will not give Nicocreon the satisfaction of seeing him break. With Nicocreon presiding like a judge of doom, the executioners raise the iron pestles high. There's a brief, terrible pause. Then the first blow falls. Crack! The pestle slams down into the mortar with a dull thud. A scream rings out as bones shatter. Anaxarchus's left leg has been struck with full force. The pain is beyond excruciating, blinding, white-hot agony. But this is only the beginning. Another executioner brings down a second pestle. Crack! The right leg this time. Bone splinters under iron. The watching soldiers flinch at the brutality, and some turn away, unable to look. But Nicocreon leans forward, eyes gleaming with a cruel delight. He has waited years for this moment. Blow after blow, the iron rods come crashing down. Bones break like twigs, and Anaxarchus's cries echo off the stone walls. Or does he grit his teeth and refuse to scream? According to some accounts, the philosopher endured the torture with unbelievable courage, choking back any cry of pain. His body is failing, ribs cracking, limbs crushed into bloody pulp, but Anaxarchus's spirit burns fiercely. As the executioners pause for a moment, panting from their grisly work, Nicocreon steps forward. He wants to look his victim in the eye, to revel in Anaxarchus's suffering. Surely by now the proud philosopher is regretting that joke, begging for mercy. Anaxarchus, bloody and broken, looks up at his tormentor. Through blood-flecked lips, he does something utterly unexpected. He laughs, a wet, ragged chuckle. Incredulous, Nicocreon watches as his victim summons the strength to speak. Anaxarchus's voice comes out in a mangled gasp, but the words are clear enough. Go on, grind away. You're only crushing the bag that holds Anaxarchus. You cannot crush Anaxarchus himself. For a moment, there is stunned silence. Did this dying man really just dare to mock the tyrant again? Nicocreon's face contorts with rage. Anaxarchus's statement is defiant and eerily philosophical. By bag, he means his body, just a sack of bones and flesh. The true self of Anaxarchus, he implies, is his soul or mind, which Nicocreon can never destroy. In this grotesque scene of blood and agony, the philosopher refuses to be defeated in spirit. He's essentially telling Nicocreon, no matter what you do to my body, I triumph because you can't touch who I really am. Nicocreon is livid. This was supposed to be his moment of satisfaction, yet here is Anaxarchus turning it into a final lesson on the powerlessness of tyranny over the human spirit. Enraged that his victim still has the will to taunt him, Nicocreon decides to silence the philosopher once and for all. He barks an order, cut out his tongue. If Anaxarchus wants to use that tongue to insult kings, then he shouldn't have one at all. Soldiers move to obey, prying the philosopher's jaws open. But before they can lay blade to flesh, Anaxarchus fixes Nicocreon with a fearless stare. In an act of shocking self-mutilation, Anaxarchus bites down hard. With a sudden jerk of his head, he bites off his own tongue. Blood gushes from his mouth. Those holding him recoil in horror as Anaxarchus spits the bloody tongue out, and legend says he spits it straight at Nicocreon's face. The tyrant staggers back, repulsed and astonished. In that instant, even Nicocreon, a man who has ordered countless cruel deeds, is struck with disbelief. Anaxarchus has robbed him of the twisted pleasure of cutting out his tongue and turned it into a final gesture of defiance. The philosopher's message is unmistakable. I will never plead for mercy, and you will hear no more words from me. Moments later, the executioners, perhaps at a sign from their rattled master, bring the pestles down in a frenzy, crushing what little life is left in the broken body at the bottom of the mortar. With one last heavy thud, Anaxarchus is dead, his body practically pulverized. Thus ends one of the most gruesome executions of the ancient world. The courtyard falls quiet except for Nicocreon's heavy breathing. He has finally taken his revenge. But one wonders, did he feel triumphant, or did Anaxarchus's fearless end leave even the tyrant uneasy? The dark saga of Anaxarchus spread far and wide in the ancient world. Those who heard of it were horrified, and yet many were inspired by the philosopher's incredible courage. Anaxarchus's final stand became a testament to the strength of principle. He would not renounce his words or dignity even under the most horrific torture imaginable. To the very end, he proved that while a tyrant could destroy his body, he could not break his spirit. His story has survived for over 2 millennia as a stark example of speaking truth to power, and the brutal price that can come with it. And what of Nicocreon, the tyrant who inflicted this atrocity? In a twist of fate, his own end would come not long after. A few years later, Nicocreon's overlords turned on him. Cornered by forces too great to fight, Nicocreon took his own life, allegedly killing himself and his entire family rather than face the wrath of a greater king. The man who ground another human being into paste met his own dark fate, proof that even tyrants cannot escape justice forever. As we reflect on this chilling tale, a few key takeaways stand out. First, beware the power of words. A single joke changed Anaxarchus's destiny, showing how a sharp tongue can cut deeper than a sword and provoke consequences just as lethal. Second, the story of Anaxarchus reminds us of the potential for courage and integrity even in the face of death. It's a sobering example of standing for one's beliefs, however costly. And finally, it highlights the extreme cruelty that absolute power can breed, a lesson that still resonates whenever we see oppression in the world today. If this astounding and gruesome story captivated you, please remember to hit the like button. Let me know in the comments what you think about Anaxarchus's fate. Was he foolish to provoke a tyrant, or heroic for how he faced his end? Don't forget to subscribe for more riveting tales from history's darkest corners. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious and stay safe.